Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Between Friends. I'm Eileen Roche, and here's Deborah Jones, my guest for today.
It's going to be fun, Eileen, because we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, bobbins.
You know, it doesn't really sound that exciting, but without it, embroidery is a complete failure, right?
Well, it affects every stitch you make. That bobbin is involved in every single one of them, no matter what top thread you're using.
Absolutely. Well, you know, we have friends joining in from all over. We have Ann up in Minnesota, and Jennifer is in Illinois, and Judy Warren, aloha. Oh, we love hearing that. Judith Whitlock and Connie Nilsson from Mission, Texas. Where's Mission, Texas?
South Texas, I'm pretty sure, right?
Deborah is a born and bred Texan. Been here all your life, right?
I have, and except for brief stints in Colorado and Missouri, but always come back to Texas.
Yeah. So we had an earlier question about an hour ago in these comments. What time zone? We're in Dallas, Texas, so we're always broadcasting in Central Time Zone, whether it's daylight savings or not. It's Central Time Zone. So just mark your calendars like that. So if you have friends that embroider, you might want to invite them to today's broadcast because Deborah Jones is bringing her A game, and we're going to talk about all those particulars about bobbins, like the different sizes.
Right.
And the thread types.
Very important.
Mm-hmm. And then do you wind them or do you buy pre-wound?
Both.
Okay. And good reasons for both, right? And then how to keep that bobbin thread where it belongs. Where is that, Deborah?
On the bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, my goodness. We have friends in West Tennessee, Oklahoma, Kansas. Oh, it's so nice to have everybody here. And look who else is in the house. Joanne Banco.
Woo!
Always great to have her here. And then Bonnie up in Canada. Okay. So, you know, of course, whenever we talk about a topic, it's usually brought to you by a specific product. And today we have a special on our Steady Stitch bobbin tubes. So that's all the special pricing. You get free shipping with that promo code SS Bobbins. And of course, we're going to talk about each individual one. You ready to get started?
I am ready to dig in.
All righty. And now remember, don't forget to ask questions. We're monitoring the chat. We want to make sure we answer your questions. And, you know, when Deborah's in the house, you're going to get the right answer. Just saying. Right?
Well, you know, it's a very important topic. And we try to, you know, treat it with, you know, the depth it deserves.
That's right. The respect, absolutely, that it deserves. So bobbin sizes, Deborah, you know, we often think the bobbins are all the same. And, you know, to the inexperienced eye, they kind of appear the same.
Very much so. They're all round and they all are small and white, well, or black, but, you know, the L is what's typically used in those cylinder arm machines. So that could be a single needle or a multi-needle. The Alliance, the Persona, those type of machines, or your 6 needle, 10 needle machines, 4 needle. But the L, the A is what's almost always used in our tabletop, but some brands not exactly, you know, but with many brands, the A bobbin is what's used. Now, Eileen, you know, you get that little silver adapter, and you can drop that in and use an L, right? Okay. But the best bobbin for your machine really is the one that it's made for, right?
Absolutely. You know,
so, you know, you could use an L if there were a reason to, but for the most part, we're going to say that, well, I'm going to say, I recommend if your machine uses an A, use an A. That adapter will work to let you adjust to an L if there's a reason you need to use a specific bobbin.
Mm-hmm. And let's see. So Jennifer, her handle is not a bright one. She says that her Husqvarna Viking Diamond takes an L bobbin.
Good to know, because there are some machines that do use an L as its native bobbin, let's call it, So
Right.
Thanks for letting us know that's one of them. Thanks.
Yeah. And I just want to give a shout out to Deborah Hemmings joining from Hilton Head, South Carolina.
Nice.
I wish we were there.
Exactly. I bet it's a little breezy there on the beach, though, today.
It might be. Deborah, I was just a little north of you last weekend in Norfolk, Virginia. So same coast, right? Just a little north. So let's see. Belinda, she loves her dime products and her weightless quilter.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, speaking of the weightless quilter, we're going to be sharing that in a couple weeks and talking about, how to handle the bulk of a quilt. But that's a really good segue to whether you wind your own or you don't, right?
Sure is, because there's reasons to wind your own bobbins. And, many people who do quilting like to wind their own.
Yeah, because you either are going to match the backing, the back, or you're going to match the thread that's in the needle. Either way, there's lots of reasons to wind your own. And jewelry, lace, is one of them.
And of course, we've talked many times, Eileen, about how, you can use a size 60 weight polyester thread to wind to match, because in the exquisite line of thread, that 60 weight thread has a counterpart to the same color in a 40 weight. But even if you're using a metallic thread, you can wind your bobbin in metallic, or if you were using, let's say, silver metallic, you could use a white or silver 60 weight, or if you were doing a gold metallic, if you didn't want to use a metallic bobbin, you could use a gold color 60 weight, right, Eileen?
Sure, and that way the reverse side of the embroidery is not a glaring difference from the top. You might not get that sparkle that you would get in a Kingstar metallic, but the color and the tone would be about the same.
But there really has been a lot of success winding that Kingstar right onto a bobbin.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We have the earrings to prove it.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, let's see. Lisa just joined us from Mississippi, but I wanted to give a shout out to Betty Turner. I think her sewing room looks like mine. She says she has dime supplies all over her sewing room and she loves them. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Love to hear that. Thanks for the nice comment. Now, we did have a question, yes, let's see. Retha Ranky. Hi, Retha. Hope things are doing well up there in Montana today. She says she thinks her baby lock is a 15.
Right. So the other name for a style A is class 15. So there's class 15 and style A. So it's the same thing, just
bobbin.
another name.
Right.
Yes.
Just like to confuse us, right?
Yeah.
Let's give it two names just to confuse us. Anyway. Okay. So let's see. Reen Wilcoxon is here, and she says she didn't know that you had your threads also in 60 weight.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's our fine line, and it comes in 22 colors. So there's a lot of choices for those bobbins.
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. And that's also what we use for our micro lettering. Okay, let's see. And Jennifer says she's sporting her homemade earrings today. Awesome. Well, I'm without a pair right now, but you'll
I
forgive
never
me.
see you without them,
know.
Eileen.
I know. Oh, well. Okay, we're working.
That's right.
All right, let's talk about its true function, right? Bobbins.
Right.
It's all about tension.
Sure. And, on your reverse side of your embroidery, ideally, if you were doing a satin stitch letter an inch high, you could see how much ratio of bobbin thread is on the reverse side. So you can see this illustration shows you about a third should be running down the center on a satin stitch in at least a 1-inch size, because other than that, it's too hard to see, right, Eileen?
Absolutely.
But if you're looking at the reverse side, that is the goal. Now, does it mean your embroidery is not good or not serviceable if you don't have that perfect 1/3? No, but that is the goal. And it's good to have that ideal in mind, right?
And part of the reason why that happens is the difference in the weight of the threads.
Sure. And
right?
exactly. And the interaction that they have on each other. Because if you think of it, it's a tug of war, right, Eileen?
Yeah.
The top thread's pulling that bobbin thread, and you just don't want it to pull on it so much that it comes to the surface.
Right. Now, when you have threads that are the same weight as when you're quilting, normally thread top and bottom are the same weight, then you get your balanced tension.
Right.
And if you don't, then you can adjust the bobbin case.
Exactly. And of course, quilting is one of those instances where you do use threads of the same weight, top and bottom. Not always, but in quilting, that's a preferred balance, right, Eileen?
Absolutely. You know, I just want to give a shout out to Kathy Colvin here. She's a new sewer.
Oh,
yeah. She's my sister-in-law, and she's a brand new sewist. So I'm so excited to have her watching today. She doesn't embroider yet, but we're working on that.
Well, it won't take her long because she's going to get inspired by watching all the things you do. Yes.
But listen to what Joanne Banco said. So she said she was troubleshooting a friend's machine this week, and she had the wrong size bobbin in the machine. What a mess that would make. You would never get a balanced stitch, right?
Well, not only that, it could also create bird's nests and just too much top thread getting pulled down to the bottom for sure. So good for you, Joanne, for identifying that issue.
Absolutely. Okay, so now let's kind of move into the pre-wound bobbins, because I know that's my favorite way to embroider. I only wind bobbins when I'm quilting or if I am making lace. It's the only time I do that.
Right, because there's so many benefits to using a pre-wound. And of course, you can get them with the paper sides, the plastic sides, or with no sides. If you use those cylinder arm machines, there's magnetic cores, and they don't have a side at all. They're just held together by an emulsion. And so that's pretty cool. But the paper sides are okay, but people have found, in fact, in the early days, Eileen, the machine companies were very opposed to them because they said they left too much debris in the hook assembly area. So, really, clean plastic sides are the answer, right?
Yeah,
they are just like the ones you wind yourself, but they're really designed for single use.
And the bobbin sensors can detect the amount of bobbin thread left on the bobbin
because they're clear. They can see right through there the amount. Good point. And the other benefit, which is very important, is you get many more yards on a factory wound bobbin, and it has a lot more consistent tension on the bobbin itself, just in the way it's wound. So whereas you may only get 100 yards on your bobbin, you might get 130 yards on a factory wound bobbin. So that's quite a big difference when it comes to doing big patterns, right?
Right. And they're wound so tight and so consistent. As compared to what we do on our home machine, not knocking the function, of that machine, but it's not its main intention, right? So it's not going to do it as professionally.
Sure. And this is probably a good time to mention that, if you are planning out your bobbin usage, depending on your stitch type, because think about a satin stitch, it's got that big wide bobbin going down the center. You're going to use more bobbin thread on satin stitches than fill stitches or running stitches, but you can expect to get 30,000 stitches plus out of a pre-wound bobbin.
Wow. And when I use pre-wounds, and if I'm really, really embroidering, if it's a sample day, we're just churning through designs, you kind of wind up with a pile of used bobbins.
Right.
And, back in the day, I remember taking a photograph of it and sending it to my stitching sister, Marie, are we done yet? Right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, but, it is a good idea. This is just something we all know. But if I'm doing something like that I don't want to remove that I know I don't want to remove that hoop for some reason, like it's a big heavy project and I don't want it to pop out of the hoop or something. I always check that bobbin first, right, Eileen?
Absolutely. And good point when you're quilting. So, when we quilt, right, we start in the center of the quilt and work our way to the right edge of the quilt and then, continue in that fashion. Well, whenever I am about to start in the center, I always check that bobbin, where I guess really when I'm at the far right edge, I check that bobbin again, even though on a monster hoop, I don't have to take it all apart. I most certainly slip the quilt over so I can take a good look. Hey, before we get on to some other questions, listen to Lisa Geritana, I think. Okay. Sure. So she just got a baby lock venture. Congratulations. And it's her first embroidery machine ever.
Wow. Good one.
And you received a huge box of Dime Exquisite thread and you're using the pre-wound bobbins right now. I love to hear a new person who just jumps right in with the pre-wound bobbins. That's the way to start.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay, so let's see. I just want to make sure can the pre-wound bobbin, this is a great question, Retha, can the pre-wound bobbins be used again after they're empty? Can they be refilled?
Well, here's the challenge with it. They don't have holes. Okay, so you can't pull it up through, but okay, let's say you can manage to get it started. Okay, the problem is, if you were going to try that, let's say you were in a pinch and you didn't have a bobbin body to wind and you're going to use one of your empty pre-wounds, what can happen is they're not made as sturdy. So when it starts getting full, that one side will pop off.
Yeah, the end cap could collapse or pop off. You're right. Now here, Beth Smith, this is an interesting question. Do you ever use a bobbin thread on your machine? She thinks it might be a good way to use that bobbin thread.
Well, as a top thread, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, well, sure. If you had a use for it, absolutely. Because I'm like you, Beth. I end up with that little bit of thread on the end of the bobbin, and I put it aside thinking I'm going to use it for something. Right. Right. So yeah.
And if I ever do twin needle stitching, that's how I get my second thread color is by using a bobbin on the top.
Yeah. Okay. Good deal.
And let's see, Jennifer, not a brat, she says she's got colored bobbins everywhere. I feel your pain. Yeah. I know. Let's see. We all need bobbin police. No, we don't need any more police in our sewing room. We got rid of the quilting police. We got rid of the embroidery police. We don't need bobbin police. No, this is your happy space, and you should be enjoying every moment that you have in your embroidery studio.
And that's the reason pre-wounds are so cool, because they take some of the work out of it. They let you get that instant gratification of just popping another bobbin in without having to stop to wind. That's one of the reasons.
Right. I love them. Yeah. And, Jennifer said that the pre-wounds won't even fit on her bobbin winder. Well, they do fit on mine, but I guess some machines are different for sure. Yeah. Lots of people say, no, do not reuse. Do not reuse. Okay. Don't reuse them.
Well, they're not made to reuse, and they're single use. That's it, really.
Yeah. Oh, and let's see, Beth Smith, her husband is inventing a bobbin unwinder.
Yeah. Well, when we wind bobbins ourselves, and we have to get that last little bit off before we can rewind it, I can see that's a handy talent.
Absolutely. Okay, so Lisa Schwartz said, what weight should you use for your bobbins?
Well, the reason that we're talking about the thread weights is because there's different purposes. Like Eileen said, for quilting, you're going to use the same weight as your top thread, which might be a 40 weight. It might be something 50 weight. It might be something different. But for embroidery, actually a lighter bobbin thread than your top thread is preferred because it's going to give you a finer stitch quality. And if you ever look at any Asian embroideries, you will see that their bobbin thread, they have this exquisite embroidery and their bobbin thread is very, very light. But we tend to use we say, hey, you could use your 60 weight, right? And 60 weight, as a matter of fact, we're going to talk about this. The bobbins that you get as pre-wounds are typically 60 or 70 weight. Sometimes there's different numbers, but we like the 60 weight and 70 weight.
And so we actually have a still camera showing the difference between the continuous filament and the spun polyester. So you want to talk a little bit to that, Deborah?
You bet, because we're
Okay.
fixing to look at it. So let's just look at this. These points. You've got two fiber types primarily: continuous filament polyester, which is very fine, thin, light thread. It's very smooth in appearance, and in our steady stitch bobbins, that's a 70 weight with 2 plies of thread. Now, the spun polyester, which is really a great fiber, it's more cotton looking, it has more texture, and that makes it easier to control the tension. Also, it's easier to control the tension because it's simply a little heavier thread. It's a 60 weight. So it's just like your top thread. The bigger the number, the finer the thread. So in this case, I know it. Note to brain, bigger number, lighter weight thread. That's hilarious,
right,
Stephanie. And it's so true because it's counterintuitive, but it's the way that it works in this thread's weight system. They're not all the same, but in the one that we're using, yes, bigger number, lighter thread. So it's not that way with needles though, is it? Bigger number, heavier blade. Go figure.
I know, right? I know.
So anyway, but let's take a look, Eileen, at what the difference is in these fiber types.
So we'll bring that up over solo overhead. There we go. Oh,
yeah. So Eileen, on the top, we're looking at a continuous filament thread, and you look and see how it curls and kind of looks like it's a little twisted there in that. Whereas the spun poly on the bottom, you can almost see those hairy fibers on it, can't you? I mean, if you use your imagination, you see it's a little thicker looking. But if you were to use your imagination, it's also got it's fibrous instead of being slick like a nylon.
Right.
And it lays perfectly flat and straight. And to me, it is not just to me, it is a preferred bobbin type in my studio, but it's also preferred by a lot of machine technicians. It's recommended by a lot of people who use the multi-needle machines. Of course, there's another favorite there, which is the magnet core.
Yes,
but,
for sure.
But I personally love the additional control that I have with the spun polyester, and it just tends to be one that's a little easier to keep on the bottom, Eileen.
Right, absolutely. Now I'm going to kind of jump topics here because Mary Nelson wanted to know what weight thread is used for stitching
for lettering.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're right, Mary. If you're doing small text, small lettering, you do want to use a finer thread because that bulk can close up the little openings in your A's and E's on small text. So I'm going to say if you're doing lettering under a 1/2 inch, absolutely use a finer thread, right?
Absolutely.
Would that be your guideline, Eileen?
Yes. That's my go-to. So Diane Mills wants to know, is this the same as serger thread 2-ply, the bobbins that we're talking about?
No, serger thread tends to be a little heavier, and serger thread, the composition's not the same. The spinning method is not the same. Serger thread has to have some give to it, whereas this thread really is meant to be more, stretch free.
Yeah, and serger thread has more fibers. It's coming off the core,
and it is spun a completely different way,
and it works fine for its application, but probably not for embroidery. Definitely not. So let's see. Now, Dawn just joined us, and we did discuss the difference between a pre-wound and a wind yourself. But just to recap, so pre-wounds are convenience items, and many embroiders use them all the time. Deborah and I, that's pretty much all we go to. But sometimes you do want to wind when you want matching colors or coordinating colors. Think of lace or quilting. So kind of that in a nutshell, that's what we felt.
Sure.
Right. Let's see. Okay. Okay. So let's see. Bonnie, this is a tough question. So she recently embroidered a large initials on a baby blanket, and when she washed it out, all the embroidery came out. Can you tell me why?
Probably lack of lock stitches on those large letters. When we start and end a letter, we have lock stitches, but sometimes they're missing, or sometimes they've been filtered out through some process in the software. So that most likely is why. So if you use that alphabet again, at the very beginning, it should make 3 small short stitches,
barely visible,
and sometimes they're in a straight line, sometimes they're a little triangle, sometimes they're more of an X. So look for those, especially if you do use computer software. Zoom in on it.
And if you have embroidery software, then you can add a locking stitch to us for sure.
Right.
Okay, so should we move on to tension? We'll talk a little bit about tension. Okay.
Sure. Now, this bobbin case is the type that's used in a cylinder arm machine. It's removable. So you can actually get to those adjusting screws easily. And normally we're going to adjust that larger screw, just turning it a quarter turn at a time. And sometimes what happens is there's just debris under that tension plate, and you can get that out with a business card or using a piece of thread like floss. You don't want to put your screwdriver under it, or you don't want to blow on it, because that will put moisture on your bobbin case. Right. So you just want to coax it out, right, Eileen?
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. Okay. Now, magnetic cores.
Oh, one of my favorites, because magnetic core bobbins, the purpose of them is to regulate the spin of the bobbin. And when it's regulated by that magnet being attached, really, or I guess you'd say attached to that bobbin case body, you get a very steady flow. And that magnet does not that magnet type bobbin doesn't need that backlash spring. That's that black part that comes in some bobbin cases when they're new is not needed with magnetic core bobbins. So pull it out and put it away in case you ever want to use it with a metal bobbin. Right. That's what it's for. That is like a break in your bobbin case. So when you use a metal bobbin, it stops it from spinning backwards.
I see.
So this is what we'd take out and just pop that bobbin, that magnetic bobbin in.
So Mary wanted to know, are magnetic cores for home machines? So why don't you clarify?
Yeah, it's only for cylinder arms, Mary, because you know why? It would be great. I love them. I would love if we could use them in our tabletop version machines. But you know what? The magnet's on the wrong side.
It's on the wrong side.
So we can't, it would spin wrong. So we can't use them in our tabletop. No. And they're size L's. So that would be another reason we'd have to put that adapter in. And we know already that's not best practice.
Okay, so let's see. So Dawn says that her machine doesn't like a basic bobbin. So are there different sizes?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, when you say a basic bobbin, I'm not sure exactly what that means, but there are different sizes of prewounds, and there's different types of thread on prewounds. So yes, that would be because we just showed you 2 style A's with continuous filament and spun polyester, right?
Right. Okay, so here's another trick question.
Okay.
All right. So Kate just picked up her first embroidery machine yesterday. Woohoo! Happy for you. And she's interested in quilting in the hoop. What weight and type of thread and bobbin?
Well, that's your area, Eileen.
So, when I'm quilting in the hoop, I use the same thread weight that's on the top and the needle and the bobbin. So I always go to exquisite 40 weight polyester thread as my go-to quilting and embroidery thread. And I'll wind a bobbin to either match the needle thread, same color, or I'll select a color that matches the back of my quilt. Usually I like to kind of keep it all the same. So if it's a very light quilt, on the top, then I'll use a light colored thread, needle, bobbin, and also backing fabric. Too much contrast, I think just, make it easy on yourself. Go with same colors and you'll be pleasantly pleased for sure. And if you are going to quilt in your embroidery machine, you need a snap hoop monster, because you can't really do it very well without it. Well, you can. I mean, you can try, but let's see. Now Lisa wants to know, will our pre-wound bobbins work on a Viking diamond?
You know, I'm not a Viking user, so I don't really know that answer. But someone earlier told us of one of the Vikings used an L, but I don't know if it's your Viking.
Right. So you would have to check with your manual. Let's see. So Belinda says, if you don't use rewound bobbins, what do you do with them? You just throw them out. Oh, I always use them up for something, because if let's say I'm making lace jewelry and I'm going to have the same 40 weight polyester thread in the needle and the bobbin, and I don't use up all of that bobbin thread, well, I'll use that bobbin to sew. I mean, it's nice, strong thread, 40 weight polyester thread. Just because it's shiny on the seam inside my garment, nobody needs to know that, right?
Yeah, and that Bernina question.
Okay, let's see what that is.
Yeah, so she has a Bernina 830. Now, this is one of the few machines I know that has what I would call a proprietary bobbin, Eileen. And no, I do not know of any pre-wounds for that machine. And it is a design by that machine manufacturer that they made that for a reason. So they do not at this time have pre-wounds.
Right. But I believe their machines have a fabulous system to wind your own. And that's kind of what you'll have to do, right?
Right.
Okay. So I just want to make sure we're caught up with our questions. So, and then the big thing is keep that bobbin thread where it belongs, right? On the bottom.
Right. So one of my, pet peeves, if you want to call it that, is to give in to the problem of bobbin coming up to the top, because I'm okay with coloring it in with what we call liquid thread. Sometimes, Eileen, if I need to save that piece of work, but don't continually do that. In other words, solve the problem, get your tension corrected, right? Find the right bobbin that your machine likes, and if you need to, Eileen, one of the points on this illustration here is to use your alternative bobbin assembly if needed, that's adjusted for a tighter bobbin tension, right?
Right. If you check your manual of your Baby Lock Brother machine, you'll notice that there are instructions as to what bobbin to use for what application. Your machine came with two, possibly three, because it provides a third gray one for couching, heavy yarn work that you would put in the bobbin. But the other two bobbin cases, one is designed for embroidery, and that has a green or purple mark on the bobbin case itself. And the one that has no mark is for sewing. And if you're like me, your machine is loaded with the embroidery bobbin case. And then when you switch to straight sewing, you can sew, but you don't have such a tight running stitch that's perfectly balanced. And you can kind of curse at the machine, but really it's not the machine. It's you, because, or me, because I didn't replace that bobbin case.
Right. Because they're just not designed to walk down both sides of the street, so I personally keep my embroidery bobbin case in all the time because I mostly embroider, and I like to use a different machine for my sewing.
I do.
Because then you're going to get a straighter seam. That seam isn't going to look, as you say, Eileen, as crisp.
Right.
Sure. But the last point on this particular slide is that spun poly bobbins are a big help with keeping your bobbin thread on the bottom. So if you haven't tried a spun poly bobbin, I suggest, if you're having trouble keeping your bobbin thread on the bottom, it might be your silver bullet.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, listen to Tanya here. She just ordered a Baby Lock array, and it's coming with our Perfect Embroidery Pro software.
Oh, wow.
Which we're going to jump in and take a look at that just for a little bit.
Yeah.
And it also comes with exquisite thread. Oh, Tanya, you're in for a treat. I'll tell you, that's a triple threat. Those three things: a beautiful Baby Lock array, professional grade digitizing software that's going to let you do whatever your heart desires, and then the right thread.
That's and Eileen and I use that software every day, Tanya.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and Tanya, she says, oh my goodness, that happens to her all the time on her Baby Lock Unity. I think she's talking about the bobbin cases, not switching them like me. So yeah, now you know, right?
Yeah.
Get those manuals out. We often ignore them, right? Just put them on a shelf, but there is an awful lot of information in there.
Right, yes.
So let's see. Okay. And Gravelly, Debbie says she likes to use a separate sewing machine that she can run her embroidery machine on another project while she's sewing. Well, that we are lucky to have the space and the ability to have two machines in our home. Not everybody can do that. I like it because, I'm a short stature. So, my embroidery machine sits up on top of a table and my sewing machine can be down a little lower on the smaller table, which makes it much more comfortable for me to sewing. Okay, and then Helen Steele was just asking about that Bernina 880. At this time, there are not Bernina pre-wound bobbins that we're aware of. We don't make them, and I don't think that they have offered them yet either.
I'm not aware of any.
Okay, let's see. And then Belinda, she just bought a snap hoop but haven't tried it yet. Okay, Belinda, I want you to come back here next week and tell me how many things you stitched in your new snap hoop monster. Because there's no reason for you to not get it out of the box and just throw a piece of felt, an old towel, anything in it. Just get familiar with it.
And not only that, just think how much more she can embroider because she's not going to spend all that time hooping.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're going to love it. Well, Deborah, we have some on the house projects to share from our viewers. So let's go ahead and do that. Here we have Mary S. Larson. She incorporated 2 of our On the House designs. Now, if you aren't familiar with the On the House program, it's a free weekly design for you. And you just go to our website. The link is right there at the bottom of the screen. And you can download a new one every week. It comes with a printed with a template that you can print, the color sequence, and Deborah Jones takes the time to write a few sentences on what you'll learn by stitching this design. I love that, Deborah. I literally read it every time, so I have something to share with them.
And that template, you've just printed out and put that crosshair right under your needle, and that pattern's right where you want it to go.
Absolutely. No guesswork there. But look at this lovely combination that Mary S. Larson did. I love that. Really well done. Now, Deborah Morgan, this was one of our first designs of the season, the yarn basket, colorful, really well done. And Renaud Paulson, she said in her comment that she likes to use embroidery designs, not just, stitch it on a piece of felt. So she's made 2 zipper bags. Beautiful colors.
Beautiful fabrics she chose for her appliques. Nice.
Absolutely. Just lovely. And then she also did another zipper bag using our Rainbow Hearts design. Now, if I remember correctly, that design was teaching us all about color blending. It's like, take a look at the pink heart, right? That at 12 o'clock there. You see how it's a soft pastel on the right-hand side and then gradually deepens and darkens in color.
Right. And each one of those hearts has 3 shades of the same color family. So it's really a cool way to use your threads that are in the same color group.
Yeah. So to our friend who still has her snap hoop monster in the box, I thought maybe you'd like to read Debbie Brooks' comment. She's got the 4x4, 5x7, 6x10, 8x8, and 8x12, and she loves them and uses them for everything. Well, so do I. I agree. And Benet, she uses the 5x7 for tiling scenes all the time, which is quilting in the hoop. It's a specific technique, but doesn't have to struggle with hooping the multiple layers. I know.
And often, Eileen, I think people just agonize over their placement when they're that aspect is so much easier with a snap hoop because you're not changing the placement by pushing in an inner ring. So when you lay that top hoop down, it takes a lot of the time of getting that placement.
Yes. And we're told in a standard embroidery hoop, never tug on your fabric once you're hooped, right? On a snap hoop monster, you can tug all you want. You can make minute adjustments under the needle, which is one of my favorite things. Absolutely. I just want to respond to Karen here. She says, can you buy tape measures for your respective snap hoops. Well, the adhesive rulers come with every snap hoop. They're in the instructions. So if you decided to just throw them out without reading them, that's where your rulers were. But yes, you can purchase them separately. They're on our website. Okay. Let's see. So we have one more. Now, Tammy Madden, she said that she's patiently waiting for spring.
That is such a beautiful design.
Yeah.
I love that those
Right.
colors. It makes you smile just looking at it. Good
Yeah.
job, Tammy.
Beautiful. So that was our spring garden design, and it was just the garden design. She added the words "Welcome Spring." She also added the yellow decorative stitching around the perimeter of that quilt block. So when you download the design, you'll just get those beautiful butterflies and the ladybug and the pretty flowers.
And that does come in a 5x7 and 4x4 version. So
great.
Any hoop size will be able to do that cute design.
That's awesome. Okay. So I guess they want to see what this week's going to be.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is the boho bunny. Look how cute he is. And he comes in 10 different colors, and they have been selected to really coordinate with one another. Now, you most certainly can use your own thread, but, Deborah went to the trouble to handpick these shades.
And they work really well together, which, it's a beautiful, really funky kind of a bunny, but everybody that sees it seems to fall in love.
So let's take a look at what comes with. So this is that template that we were talking about, has the crosshair printed on it. And of course, the color sequence. It's actually giving you a little thumbnail of the pieces of that design that are going to stitch in that color and telling you, when to change thread, right? But why don't we take a look at it in the software?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll just pop out a PowerPoint for a minute, and then we'll go over to software. There we go. And so, Deborah, there's a lot of layering going on here. So would you clarify about that, why this is going to work in this application?
Sure. This bunny looks like it would be a lot of thread on thread, Eileen. But, that pink base fill is digitized at a 0.5 density, which means it's quite light.
Right.
But it does cover the fabric. So then there are mostly satin stitches going on top. So think about embroidery you do where you might have a fill pattern and some lettering on top. Anytime you're putting satin stitches on top of a fill, you're going to be good. Now, I can tell you, I stitched this bunny multiple times. It's so adorable. And it did not aggravate my machine, Eileen. It stitched very, very nicely. No, I didn't have thread breaks or any issues with the layering, but it's because those layers are primarily satins over a light fill. Absolutely.
And the gorgeous outline. Deborah always makes sure there's a beautiful outline included. So listen to what Diana Mullins Atkinson said. She says, "Oh, wow, now that is one groovy bunny." I like that. Yeah. That's adorable. He's a groovy bunny.
He's a boho bunny.
Boho bunny. Let's see. Now, Mary Larson wants to know, will Mylar work under the bunny?
Well, Mary, if you had software and you lightened that density up to more like a 0.8 to 0.10 or 1.0.
So I'm going to go do that. So I know that you can, we can only zoom so much, but here I am in the properties box and I'm on the complex fill tab. I have only the pink bunny complex fill selected and my density is 0.5. So for Mylar, what would I do, Deborah?
Yeah, I would take it up to a 0.8.
0.8. Okay. Yeah. And I hit apply. And now you'll see that it has opened up the spacing between the stitches, right?
Much lighter than it was before.
And also my stitch count is now 19,013. So I'm just going to do the undo button and we can see the difference. Okay, so it went from 20,885 down to 19,013. So it's a significant number of stitches.
Now, for such a small design, because this bunny is small.
Yeah, he's just under 4 inches.
Right.
So if you were to put Mylar under there now, that sheen and sparkle would bleed through, right?
And you could, Mary, go even lighter on your density. It just depends on how much Mylar you want to show through.
Yeah.
I personally like for it just to be a hint. I like it to make the viewer say, wow, what is special about that embroidery?
Yeah.
So I personally like between 0.8 up to, you can go as high as 1.1 in our software. Other softwares designate density differently, but the key is you want fewer stitches.
Right. And it's really the spacing between the lines of thread. That's really what you're changing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Well, Deborah,
question.
it was so much fun having you here today.
I enjoyed it.
Great.
And I hope that our viewers learned something about bobbins, and I hope that they'll want to, try some of the techniques we talked about.
So I hope you'll join us next week for our next episode of Between Friends. And we look forward to seeing you then on March 17th. It'll be St. Patty's. Will be the St. Patty's Day.
Right.
Woohoo! Let's see. Okay, well, before we go, I'm just going to answer Stephanie. She wants to know, can you make the applique a bunny?
Well, that outline on the bunny is a continuous outline. So if you're a little bit savvy about applique, sure, you could do that.
But let me just show you, if you have our software, you could take that outline of the bunny and you can right click, convert to applique. And now you have an applique. You would remove that complex fill because you're not going to need it, right? Because now you'll have fabric there. But look at the pretty flowers that you would.
That's pretty cool, Eileen.
I know.
And when she converted that to an applique, that means that there's going to be that placement line, the tack down, and the final cover stitch.
Let's go ahead and do a redraw. So here's our placement guide. Then this is our tack down. And then we're going to do that beautiful satin outline. And then we're going to go right into all of our pretty flowers.
And if you're going to use a flowered fabric or pattern fabric, you wouldn't even have to add that. You could do however you want.
Right. And maybe you just keep the eye, right? So here's what we could do. Look, I'm going to lock the bunny and I'm going to get rid of a whole bunch of those flowers. And I'm just going to leave the eye. And hopefully we can do this in a pretty quick fashion, but it's fun.
And
go ahead.
Mary, we want to see your bunny on social media with your applique.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even if you don't do the applique, we want to see your bunny.
So see how fast and easy that was? And imagine if you filled that with fabric, which I think I can do.
She wants to know how to order bobbins.
How do you order bobbins and use the promo code? Well, my team here will post that in the comment, and the promo code is Bobbins SS, I believe. So let's go ahead and get that posted at the bottom of the screen. There you go. The free shipping, the promo code is SS Bobbin. Oh, Mary Larson, she wants to use a crystal in the eye. That would be adorable. I love that. I think we're going to see Mylar bunnies, applique bunnies, and just boho bunny because he's so cute, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So please post your projects on social media, either Instagram or Facebook, and use the hashtag #DimeSewAlong, hashtag on the house, hashtag between friends, your choice. Use any one of them or all of them, right?
Well, it was fun, Eileen.
It was fun, Deborah. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.